Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, everybody. My number one goal of this next session is, at the end of it, for us all to have gotten the imagery of him trying to push a mule up a ladder out of our heads. So that's the number one goal here. We'll see if we can get past that. So I am going. It's actually I had graduations last weekend. This is a soccer tourney that I'm going to on this one, and so I will be watching a bunch of 12-year-old girls run around and kick a soccer ball here shortly. But I wanted to start actually by sharing a story, and it is a story, I don't know if you remember, it's actually almost exactly the 10-year anniversary of Cecil the Lion. Does anybody remember Cecil the Lion? So Cecil the Lion was a beloved lion who was hunted by a trophy hunter in Minnesota, and it blew up social media. People put it on and they said, wow, look at this amazing trophy. Or they said, oh my gosh, look at this monster who killed this amazing creature. And I grew up in Montana, and I now live in Portland, Oregon. So I'm not making any claims at all about whether it was right or wrong to shoot this lion, but I'm sharing with you that people lost their collective minds. And so on social media, a comedian posted this picture, and then he said, a disgraceful photo of a recreational hunter happily posing next to a triceratops he just slaughtered. Please share so the world can name and shame this despicable man. And now, everybody understands who this is, right? Steven Spielberg, on the set, 1993 of Jurassic Park. I promise you that 0 dinosaurs were killed in the shooting of that movie. And yet, because this had just happened and we had just seen something similar with Cecil the Lion, the comments flooded this thing. I can't believe this. When are we going to learn? When are we going to stop killing these beautiful creatures? And then somebody tried to help them out a little bit, and they said, hey guys, this is Steven Spielberg, the director of Jurassic Park. And they said, I don't care who he is. He has no right to take this beautiful creature off of our earth, right? And I bring this up because one of the important things at these conferences for us to do is to try to get out of all of our prior thinking and just clean the slate and think about things in a new way. And so try to do that as you're going here. Try to forget the things that we think we know and start with kind of a clean slate and look at opportunities that we have here. So I've got 10 steps, and you guys will get these slides and everything, so don't worry about keeping track of these. But this is really focusing on the reputation component of CX. You're going to get so much great information on how to improve CX, how to manage, how to measure CX, but I'm going to be talking more so about how to translate all the hard work that you're doing on the client experience into the firm's reputation externally and in the job market as well. So we'll be kind of going through this. So the first piece is just to understand that we're in this world of service transparency. And there's never been a better time to be in client experience. Like I said, if you look at the Google Trends, it is literally a topic that is at its peak over the last 15 years. It's never been higher. It's never been more relevant. And the customer, or in our case, the client, has never had more power. This is a picture of a Canadian musician, Dave Carroll. Anybody here from Canada? Okay, we have a Canadian in the back. I know I'm from Montana. We have some Minnesotans. So we have, Canada Light on this as well. But the thing that you should know about Canadians that is a stereotype that just turns out to be mostly true is that they're all very, very lovely and very nice, right? And this musician was flying, and he was flying from Canada into Chicago on United. And as he's getting off, he sees his $3,500 Gibson guitar get thrown on the tarmac. And he's like, oh no. And so he goes and he picks it up, and he says, hey, I think that something happened to this. And he opens it up, and it's pretty much destroyed. And so he takes it up to the gate agent, and he says, I saw them throw it. I literally saw them throw it on the tarmac. Here's what happened. She's like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. She said, unfortunately, there's nothing that we can do here. You have to wait until you get back to where you started your journey, and then you can file an issue there, and we'll take care of it. So he borrows another guitar for the gig, does the gig, goes back the next day, And he goes back and he goes up to the gate agent and they go, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, but all claims have to be filed within 24 hours. And so we're not going to be able to help you on this." And so he goes to another gate agent. They tell him the same thing. He goes home and he writes and he calls and he calls and he writes. And then he gets mad, like not mad, but Canadian mad. And he says, "You know what? The one thing I'm pretty good at is writing songs." And so he wrote a song and shot a video of it and he posted it on YouTube. And it was called United Breaks Guitars. And in the first 6 hours, it was viewed by 150,000 people. It's one of the very first YouTube viral sensations. And within a day, it had been viewed 1.5 million times. And 2 days into it, he gets a call from a United executive and they say, "Oh my gosh, I heard about this. I'm so sorry. Let me just take this away. I'm going to get you a new Gibson guitar. I just do need you to take down that video." And he said, "You know what? Actually, the video's doing pretty well. And the CEO of Gibson actually replaced my guitar with not one, but 2 guitars. So I'm doing pretty good on the guitar thing. I'm going to ride this out." And by the end of the year, it had been viewed 9 million times. It's still up today, and you can view it. It's been viewed now 22 million times. In fact, the story became so good for him that he decided, you know what I'm better at than singing? Talking about how bad United sucks. And so he wrote a book, and now he goes and speaks all over the place around the power of the consumer as a part of this. And I bring this up because in the age of service transparency, CX is not only imperative because of what it does for our firms internally, it's also imperative because, you always hear this adage that, a satisfied customer tells 3 people, a dissatisfied person tells 10 or 18 in the era of social media. Well, this dissatisfied person told 22 million, right? And so that's the stakes that we're dealing with as we look at this. And so when we talk about this, and it's important to think about reputation, right? Reputation is really the perceptions that clients, employees, partners, prospects have of us, and it's what they say about us when we're not in the room. Reputation is not what we say about us, it's what other people say about us. So when I talk about reputation, I'll be talking about the perception that people have of us. And that's not always the reality, right? This is me as a sophomore in high school. I thought that my reputation was a pretty cool guy. What do you think I hoped my reputation was? A sophomore boy in high school, growing up in the middle of nowhere, Montana. Ladies' man. I kind of thought I maybe was a ladies' man. And I will tell you distinctly, looking back now, I was not. And if I had gotten some feedback at the time from my friends who now are quick to point out all of my faults in high school, they would have said things like, "Hey, you know what girls in rural Montana don't appreciate? Guys that sew their own shirts for the school picture day," which I did. And I thought that was somehow making me cooler and more approachable, right? But the reality doesn't matter. The perception matters over and over and over again. And so when we look at reputation, we have to make sure that we're doing this. And we have to understand that things are really changing, right? We have this huge opportunity now because we are looking at reputation in a lens that we've never had. We've never had more data and information available. This is my 2 kids a few years ago. And when we had these kids, we had a major decision. Anybody that has kids knows that the decision of who your physician for your kids is going to be is an important decision. And so like every major decision in the Gregg household, it was made by my wife, but the way she made it was really interesting. She went online on Facebook. She said, "Hey, if anybody in Portland, if you love your kid's doctor, let me know who they are." And within a couple days, we had a list of 14 people. And then we went and we read reviews and ratings for those 14 people. We got it down to 2. And we went and we met with those 2 and we chose the Dr. Pritchard that we still use today. It's still the kid's doctor today. Now, my point on this being that we were almost all the way towards making a decision before any of those clinics ever actually knew that we were a prospect, right? And so our reputation does precede us. It either makes our client acquisition, our client retention easier or harder. It's either a tailwind or a headwind. It can't be anything but those two things. So we have to really understand, and this is from Gartner, this is the average B2B buying process, right? I don't want you to take anything away from that other than the fact that there's a lot of steps in there and there's a lot of complexity in there. And where we actually engage is not where we think that we engage. Both Gartner and Forrester have estimated that the average B2B buying purchase is 80% complete before they ever reach out or engage with an individual from the firm. 80% complete. That means that we have to show up and we have to be in the right places at the right time as we look through that. The good thing is, for us, is that when we ask clients, we said, what resources do you trust the most? Referral is at the top of that. Online reviews are second. Testimonials are fourth. Those three things, all reputation-based. And those three things are all things that we can have some control over, right? Some influence on. But they are the perceptions, and we have to be able to take those and move those forward in a positive way. When we look at this, it makes sense. For professional service buyers, they're looking at two things. They're looking at what is the rating, and basically they don't trust you unless you're above a 4, really a 4.3, and the number of ratings that you have, right? And you really have to be in a particular location really above 20 on that to be meaningful as a part of it. Now, this makes sense, right? When we look at this, and we've done purchases in our environment, I've presented on this, I've sort of had titles of like the consumerization of B2B buying, right? And it's happening all the time. Our Amazon experience sort of dictates the experience that we expect to have when we are making a decision about something way more important in our business lives as well. And so the more that we can deliver some of that same experience, the better off that we are. And we've all looked at, 2 television sets, and one has a 5-star rating and 6 reviews. And the other one has a 4.7-star rating and 800 reviews. Well, which one are you going to go with? So as you're thinking about this, it matters, right? You go back to what I just showed you on that referral being the most trusted. Online reviews are the second most trusted resource. If you want to do a drinking game that will help you get sober, go try and see a single one of your competitors' websites that doesn't mention how important the client experience is, and then go see how many actual client ratings are out there publicly for them. Because you'll find almost everybody says how important the client experience is, and almost nobody has really definitive evidence of that client experience, right? Everybody can come up with 3 testimonials from somebody that loves them. Everybody. But when you get 30, when you get 300, on the testimonial side of things, we did a study a while back, and we asked people how influential a certain number of testimonials would be. And what we're seeing is that testimonials are being treated now more like reviews, which is like if you show me 3 testimonials, makes no impact. Everybody's got 3 testimonials. But if you can show me 30 from people just like me, or a dozen from people just like me, specificity matters a lot on the testimonial piece. And so make sure that you're really driving that home as much as you can as you kind of taking control of that reputation. The third one I want to talk about is turning issues into opportunities. And this has been hit on a little bit already. But the actual research behind it is pretty compelling. It's called the service recovery paradox. It's been studied in a number of different industries. And what they have found is that you can actually create more loyalty by making a small mistake and having a big recovery than you can if you never made a mistake at all. And so when we look at this and we think about, oh man, we missed that deadline, or oh man, there was an issue with how we approach this project, and you think about it as like, okay, this is going to hurt our reputation. I want you to think about it slightly differently and say, okay, this could enhance our reputation. The way to think about it is that when an issue happens or there's some kind of a service failure, the article's been written, but we still have a chance to write the headline. And the headline can be about the mistake or the issue, or the headline can be about the recovery as a part of it. So really look at those as opportunities, and however big the mistake is, the recovery has to be bigger. So I want to give a sort of a cautionary tale of what not to do. And this happened in Portland, Oregon. A nice little old lady went into a Saks Fifth Avenue, and she fell in love with a diamond necklace and earring set. And she said, how much was it? And they said, $25,000. She bought it. She took it home. She was thrilled. The end of the week, they were going through their audit, and they realized that a mistake had happened. The earrings were supposed to be $25,000, but the price tag on the necklace for $50,000 had fallen off. So they sold them as a set. They should have been individual and $75,000. So they called her up and they said, ma'am, so sorry. Our mistake on this. The price tag fell off. We have a couple options. You can either bring them back and we'll refund you the $25,000, or you can bring us a check for $50,000 and the difference. And bless her heart, she said, there's a third option. You told me it was $25,000. I paid $25,000 and I'm going to keep those. And instead of saying, oh, that's an expensive lesson that we need to do better with our price tags, they brought it to legal. And legal said, how could we be scared of this little old lady in Portland, Oregon? And so they sent her communication that said, hey, we're going to sue you for $150,000. The $50,000 that you owe us plus the perceived $100,000 in legal fees that we're going to go to take this to court. Just trying to scare her, right? And she lawyered up. And her lawyer, who I'm sure was probably good at a lot of things, apparently was not good at data security and accidentally leaked this story to the Letterman show, the Leno show, the New York Times, and it became this massive public relations debacle for Saks Fifth Avenue with the headline, Saks sues customer. And I'd like to put Nordstrom's up here because when I ask people to give like an example of a company going above and beyond, Nordstrom comes up a lot. There's the famous ones where, you know, an old man came in and was confused and swore that he'd bought his tires there. They've never sold tires ever, but they were in a place that used to be a tire facility way back when. And so they went out and they bought him new tires, right? And you have all these stories, and Nordstrom's comes up big a lot of times in these stories. But just imagine how they might have viewed it, because it could have happened to them too. It's an honest mistake. But I think they would have called and they would have said, ma'am, there's been a mistake. We should have charged you $75,000. Instead, we charged you $25,000. We're not going to try to get that $50,000 from you. That was just a mistake that we made. But we have this situation now where it's worth a lot more than you thought it was. So we need to fill out some extra paperwork so that your insurance covers it appropriately. I realize that's a pain. So if you want to come back in for you and up to 5 of your friends, we'll give you a 10% store discount and we'll open a bottle of wine at your good fortune. Right? They would have seen the opportunity, because what do we know about little old ladies that spend $25,000 for jewelry? They are friends with other little old ladies who pay $25,000 for jewelry, right? What an amazing opportunity to turn that story into something that really matters. The other thing that happens that we see so often is we want to solve the problem before we respond. And that's a mistake. This is actually a friend of a friend. Guys, I'm trapped in an Amtrak elevator at BWI Airport. She tweets that towards Amtrak on February 14th, 2016. 7 months later, they respond. We are sorry to hear that. Are you still in the elevator? We always want to have all of the information and then respond to our clients. But the problem is that the second that they hit submit on an email where they're frustrated, the second that they hang up the phone, leaving you a voicemail of frustration, they're starting a timer. And every minute that goes by, they assume that you care less about this issue than they do. And that's where the real anger comes from. Most people will recognize that mistakes happen and they'll be okay with that. What they will not be okay with is the concept that they care more about it than you do. And so you have to respond quickly, even if it's just to say, hey, I just got this. I am so sorry that this happened. I understand how frustrating this has to be. I'm going to figure out what's going on. Give me an hour and I'll be back to you. Okay? Allow them to be frustrated. They're frustrated already, so acknowledge how frustrating it likely is. You don't have to say that you did anything wrong, by the way. I've had times when I've said this and the legal teams have come up and been like, hey, by the way, we can't have our firm admitting that they did something wrong from a legal exposure standpoint. You don't have to say that. Okay? You can say, I'm so sorry that you're experiencing this, right? Does not acknowledge who did it, what is going on with that. Like you can word it in a way where you're giving empathy to the feeling without admitting anything on that side. So I want to talk about standing out from the crowd now. And so we're going to do a little pop culture here. Does anybody recognize who this is? Las Vegas standout, close-up magician, Shin Lim. What about this person? Okay, Darcy Lynn Farmer. This person. Okay, Ksenia Simonova. This person. Anybody? Susan Boyle. Okay, so you're telling me that you didn't remember who the top 3 winners of the 2021 The World's Got Talent is, but you remember the 12th place finisher. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about this because I have a crush on Susan Boyle. My wife's fine with it. I have a crush on the Susan Boyle story. She got 12th place in 2019 America's Got Talent. She got 2nd place in 2009 Britain's Got Talent. She didn't even win that, right? Where she became famous was in 2009, and it was Britain's Got Talent. She didn't even win the competition. 100 million YouTube views in 9 days. Highest selling album of 2009, which is even more impactful when I tell you that she released her album November 15th, 2009. So in the last 6 weeks of the year, she outsold every single album that year. And she had the best opening week sales for a female debut ever. Historically, it still stands the best ever. Better than Taylor, better than Beyonce, better than anybody. So why? Why did we talk about Susan Boyle? Okay, quick show of hands. If the first time that you ever saw that clip, whether it's a few years ago or maybe you never saw it, maybe you just saw the picture I put on there, just raise your hand if you saw that and you said, oh, there's our next pop diva. Right? And shame on us, right? Because we have this view of what a pop diva is going to look like or act like, and she did not fit that. And then she came on stage and she has this amazing voice, right? And this beautiful song. And so that story became what was standout to it. And we have to do the same thing, right? We have to find ways to surprise. Nobody's going to go home and be like, oh my gosh, I got to tell you, our architecture firm's so amazing. I sent them 3 emails today. They responded to all 3 of them. Like, that's divorce, right? That's divorce. That's why we get divorced. That's boring. That's not good conversation. But if something goes wrong, that's a story. Something goes wrong and somebody at your firm plays a hero role, that's a story. That's what we have to do to be remarkable. We want to talk about amplifying your success. The natural thing on any of your CX programs is, what can we be doing better? What mistakes are we making? Who's frustrated with us? Who's at risk? What projects are at risk? What accounts are at risk? And we focus all of our time down there, and it's human nature to do that. If you read any of the relationship books, they'll tell you that you need 5 positive interactions to offset every 1 negative interaction. Your CX program needs to be doing the same thing. Your firms are doing great work out there. You have to find ways to amplify this, to push this out. And I only have a couple of these, literally 2 of these in here, but I just want to show you how we do this at Clearly Rated. So we have our shout outs, which is an opportunity to really give recognition to one of those internal firms. And then we'll post it on social media. And so I did this knowing that Hannah was going to be in the audience today and I wanted to embarrass her. But Hannah, wave your arms. So Hannah is one of our customer success managers and is working actually on the Client Savvy product now as well. But when she delivers great service and a client brags about what great service she delivers, it gives me an opportunity to amplify that out. And very quickly, I can share it with the world. I can make sure that Hannah knows that I'm paying attention, that I appreciate what she's doing. And also, I can share, like basically the rest of the firm sees that as well. So make sure that you're taking those success stories, whether it's formal or informal, and finding ways to bring light to those inside the firm, finding ways to bring lights outside of the firm. It used to be from a marketing perspective that we were supposed to be storytellers, right? And there was this mode in kind of my early marketing career where they were saying, hey, we have to be effective storytellers and brand storytellers. And what we find now is that actually the least credible people to tell the story about how great your firm are the people at your firm and the marketing and the sales collateral of your firm. So we have to find ways now that we amplify the success stories that we have and the voices and the stories that are out there. Part of the reason why we do that is this concept of the day one list. And this is some research that we stole from Google and Bain, and they did this B2B research. And what they found was they asked people, when you start looking to hire somebody in an organization, do you start with a list of firms that you think you would consider, or do you start with a blank slate and then you go build a list of firms? And 4 out of 5 said that they started out with what they call a day one list. And that was pretty impactful, right? Because that means that, okay, people generally are not starting from scratch. They have an idea of a firm or firms that could potentially work with. But what really blew me away was that they found out if you have a day one list, 9 out of 10 times, they ended up choosing one of the vendors that was on that day one list. So this one really blew my mind, right? Because basically what it's saying is that if we are not present in their minds when they start to go through that problem recognition phase, it's really hard to catch up to somebody that is and to earn that business that somebody is. And so we have to make sure that we're getting that reputation out there in a way and that we're standing out. And the way that we do that is by being a specialist. The research has really shown a lot in the last couple of years that we're getting additional value placed on people who can add what we kind of talk about as value above billable. So whatever the project's going to cost is great. Let's say that there's a handful of firms that can do this project. The value above billable is the context that somebody can bring because they've done 4 projects just like it. The context that somebody can bring because they are truly the thought leader. They are of the community and they know exactly how to approach this for a firm like yours. And so the way to think about it is there's kind of 3 levels, right? And the first level that everybody's trying to figure out is, okay, are they experts? Are they good at what they do? And as firms, this is where we spend most of our time, right? We talk about what we're doing. We put out, information about key things, policies, rules, regulations that have come up and how we're helping clients get through that. But what happens is that when people get to this point, then they go to this next level, which is, okay, that's great. They're good at what they do, but do they know what it's like for a firm like me, right? So for a company like mine, for a situation like mine, do they have expertise there? And this is where we do not nearly enough of this, right? And then that third level is this evidence of excellence. So I've answered the question, are they experts in what they do? I've adequately answered the question of like, do they get me, right? Do they work with people like me? And then that third level that they're trying to understand is, okay, are they actually going to deliver on this? I know they can do it, but what are the odds that they will do it? And the way that I think about this is the strength of your claims, okay? My family loves The Rock in all forms. Comedies, I mean, his worst movies will still make my son's top 10s, okay? And he's not a rock, he's the Rock, right? There's only one. He's one of one. Like him or not, he is one of one. He's carved out a space that is unique to him. And what we find is that we want to actually carve out a space like The Rock did for your firms, okay? And the start of that is like, you could use us to design your next commercial office space. Okay, if that's your, just as an example, right? If you're a firm that does that, then you've got a lot of competitors, and you're either going to be, fighting on price or commodity or, a relationship maybe that you have, but it's not very strong. Second level is you should use us to design your next commercial office space because we do more of these types of builds than anybody in the area. Well, that's a really strong, right? Now we go from, many competitors to a few competitors. But where we want to go is you must use us if you want access to the largest community of independent builders as a part of this, right? And this now, we take this down to a competitive set of 1. And that's what you're always looking at. You're not always going to get to the must, but you have to get past the could. You have to get to the should. And the way that you do that is by specializing and really bringing that specialization to the market. When we talk about reputation, it's a neighborhood effect. And everybody at your firm, the experience that they're delivering for clients is impacting the overall firm experience on this piece of it. And when somebody goes and does a great job, they make it that much easier for everybody else at the firm to be able to grow their business and to go to that next level. And we have to really understand that a lot of times what's happening on this, like I said earlier when Ryan and I were talking, is we have this policy and this process in place, and yet we're always trying to fix it. We're always trying to tweak it. And what we have found in the research that we've done is that oftentimes it's actually not the process that's broken. It's the execution of the process. And so I'll give an example. If there's a project going on the West Coast and that project's getting rave reviews and that project manager's getting great reviews, and then there's a project going on in Louisiana, very similar budget, similar type of project, and that project manager's getting hammered, I have a hard time believing that there's something wrong with your process. Because presumably, the project managers have the same training, they have the same incentive structure, they have the same tools available to them, the same expectations, and yet radically different outcomes. And so when that's the case, you have to make sure that you kind of think about, like, am I trying to fix the corner cases of the process, or am I trying to inspire consistently remarkable execution? And that's ultimately where we want to go. It matters, the firm reputation and your professional reputation matters. So these ended up transferring a little bit small on the numbers, but we asked a question. We said, when you're looking at a potential firm, how important is it the reputation of the firm? And then we said, how important is it the reputation of the professionals that you'll be working with? And what we found is that both of them kind of off the chart said, no, they're very important as a part of it. And so one of the things that we can do, and this is the last one that I'll show that kind of how we approach it, but pulling together professional pages. And if you're not using ours, you use your own, build your own. This is another actually idea that came from Mitch Reno that we talked about earlier. Like, we need to be going forth with the most impactful social proof of the project team that we can. And so when you're bringing that together and you're saying, hey, here's the project team, you've got Bill, Sue, and Amanda, and collectively, they've been doing this for 35 years. They've got between them, 215 reviews and 4.7, 4.6, 4.5, right? That's a really compelling piece. And you can decide whether you want it to be a joint version. Maybe Sue's dragging down the numbers a little bit, so you don't want to showcase that she's not doing as well as the others, but you start to do that. And guess what happens when you do it? Your professionals start to really care about CX, because now it's their reputation as well. They're not just getting lost in that other kind of collective reputation. Last one that I want to talk about is de-risking the decision to use your firm. And I thought this was really interesting. This is data that looks at the uncertainty index, economic uncertainty index. And this is done by a Stanford and a Northwestern professors. And they pulled together from like 2,000 media sources the incidence of things related to economic uncertainty in the press. And what you can see is, again, perception is what matters, right? Perception trumps reality. The perception right now is that we are in a tremendously economic uncertain time frame. 5 times higher than it was in 2024, 2.2 times higher than it was during the first 6 months of COVID in terms of the amount of press that it's getting, the amount of that we're talking about. And that really impacts us from a CX perspective as well, because we do not operate in a vacuum. The perception of us as service providers is impacted by everything else that's going on in our clients' worlds, personally, professionally, economically, macroeconomically. And so we have to be aware of that. And when there's uncertainty, it's important to not only be the best choice, but to also be the least risky choice. So I want that to set in. There's a reason why I made this the 10th one. I think this might be the most important piece. It is no longer enough for us to be seen as the right choice. We need to be seen as the right choice and the least risky choice available. And when you look at kind of how decisions are made, Corporate Executive Board is responsible for this research, and Google's done some of this research as well. What we find is that there are more people involved in the decisions about which firm to hire and retain than ever before. And when you have more people involved, the larger that group is, the more risk-averse individuals in that group get, which makes it even more important that we are not just the best choice, but the least risky choice. So how do we show that we're the least risky choice? We do it through our specialization. The ability to say with a straight face, look, we do more projects like this than anybody else. Or if we don't, you have to find another trigger in there as a part of that, right? So you come in and you say, look, this is how we would approach it. And by the way, here is all the evidence of the great work that we've done in the past. So make sure that you're going forward thinking about the last message that you leave a prospect or an expansion opportunity or a QBR with an active account is reinforcing why choosing you or staying with you is the least risky choice that they can make with the highest likelihood of a positive outcome. We're in the midst of a global shift in trust. Gallup has been doing this for 30 years, and across the board, whether it's religion, the media, government, business, we trust less than we ever have in the last 30 years as a part of it. But it's interesting because some of the things that we would have taken for granted before are actually shifting, right? So think about some of the advice that we've gotten in 2005 and how that maybe is different today. In 2005, it was logical advice to say, hey, don't get into a stranger's car. Don't meet people from the internet, right? And now, after this, I will literally summon a stranger from the internet with the express intent of getting in their car. Airbnb, right? Don't let someone you don't know into your house. That's just good advice. And now, Airbnb, we do it based solely on the fact that other people did it and seemed to say that it was okay, right? We're putting a tremendous amount of trust into reputation. Don't trust the advice of strangers. Now we seek out the advice of strangers, even though I promise you not everybody reviewing online is of sound mental state. Okay? This one, I've been a professional medium for 15 and a half years and am very sensitive to all of the energy forces that surround us. The instructors are great and the facility is clean, but when I walked into the studio, I was assaulted by the dark energy radiating from Monica at the front desk. That 1-star review matters as much as all of the sane 1-star reviews that are out there, right? And so we ultimately have to understand that things are changing and we're evolving. And so my hope on this very last point here is that we take some of this information and we turn it into action. We're sitting on top of hundreds, maybe thousands of success stories at your individual firms. Your firms are successful because of client experience. Find a way to amplify those. Take action on it. Don't just listen to it. This is me and my daughter Delaney when she was born. And like most new parents, I was going to make some changes. Okay, in that picture, I was 25 pounds overweight. And so I got a Fitbit at the time. Now this one I learned all sorts of things, right? Need to sleep a little bit more, need to eat a little less. When I walk on stage on this, I cover about 3 miles during the presentation. So I learned all this great information, okay? So fast forward now, and this is 2021 Halloween, and now 28 pounds overweight. Okay. So what's the lesson here, right? Other than just to drag myself through a shame spiral. The lesson here is that we can have all the information in the world. If we don't take action on it, nothing changes. And so I hope as you sit through the conference today, and as part of this community, you're going to hear so many great ideas. Pick 1 or 2. Don't try to boil the ocean. Pick 1 or 2 things that you're going to do and take action on it. And with that, thank you for your time.